What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to another edition of the Locks DFS NBA breakdown video. I am your host, Christian Hardy. I am at ByHardy on Twitter and ByHardy on DraftKings, and I am from LocksDFS.com, where I post all of my daily fantasy content, NFL, NBA, college football. Bowl season's getting started this weekend, so if you're interested in that, let me know. You can DM me if you're interested in that. I'll get you in for less than what we have on the website. With that said, we're here to talk about NBA on Friday, December 20th. We've got a 10-game slate on tap. Lots of interesting action and, lots of really, really good spots. And it's a really good slate because the ownership is going to be so condensed on these Toronto guys that in GPPs, there's a lot to like. So really excited to dig into it. Before we do, I wanted to remind you guys, of course, that I'm at ByHardy. You can follow me on Twitter, where I'll tweet about sports and all sorts of things. Also, we are sponsored by PrizePicks, which I will start this video by talking about PrizePicks. If you use code LOCKS when you deposit on PrizePicks for the first time, you will get an auto match of 25%, which will go straight into your account. So deposit $100, get $25 free, and you will also get a free $25 pick two. So how PrizePicks works is you pick these props over or under. And you decide if you want to go over or under on these projected scores, which is by FanDuel scoring. I'm going to talk about some here in a second, but use code LOCKS. If you have used code LOCKS in the past and you're watching this, if you deposit, redeposit, reach out to them. You use this little chat box in the bottom left if you're online, and they will give you that free 25% match as well as that free pick two for $25. So definitely check them out, try them out, deposit $20, get free $5 and get that free $25 play and see what happens, definitely recommend it. And I will give you guys some plays right here. So, I'm going to be talking about, there's actually a lot of really good props today on PrizePicks that I think are way off. My favorite is probably this one right here, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. I would definitely take the over on that. I think he's closer to probably 28, 29 points here. He's a fantasy point per minute player. We'll talk about Rondae Hollis-Jefferson later and why I like him. But yeah, really like that. The over on that, I would smash that. The other one I like is the under on Domantas Sabonis. I like Sabonis, of course, and, I don't love taking unders, but this one is just way too high in a pace-down matchup against a team that's pretty good down low, and it's getting better down low now that Bagley's healthy. Sabonis can always get there on shooting threes and such, but just don't think this is a spot where he's really going to get there, and this is a very low total game that I'm not really expecting a lot of points to be scored in. Those are my two favorites. Some others I like. I like the over on Jaylen Brown. Where is he at 34? I think that's a decent one. I think he's a little bit too low there. I like the under on... This is another one. I don't love taking the unders, especially when they're on studs. But the under on Joel Embiid in a game that should be pretty defensive. Neither team is going to run very fast. I think the under on that is pretty safe as well. Of course, we're talking about a site where you don't get bonuses. He's got to get there on raw points and, block your 3 points, and he should get a few of those. That's going to help him out. But I think the projection is pretty well under that. Don't mind the under on Rose at 34. I do like Rose today on DraftKings. I think 34, though, as a projection is just way too high. And I'll take the under on that. And another one that I'll take the under on Beal as well. Pretty tough defensive matchup. I'll talk about Beal in a second, but really, if you look at the stats with these guys off being the big guys, in Thomas Bryant, Hachimura, Mo Wagner, Beal doesn't get that much of a bump. So while he can get there for sure, I'm not really bumping his projection for not having those guys on the floor. So like the under on that. So there's some picks for you guys. Good luck over there. Like the over on Tristan Thompson too. I'm going to talk about those guys at the end of the video, but let's go ahead and go over to DraftKings now, where we can talk about the obviously chalk team on the slate is going to be Toronto here. If we just go over to Vegas real quick, this is actually a very, very low scoring slate. Not a lot of really good spots to target, which is surprising for a 10-game slate. We do have this late game of Golden State and New Orleans Pelicans at a 223 total, but the highest total is this Toronto versus Washington game. Toronto with the highest team total on the slate, despite missing, let's just go look at who they're missing, because they're missing a good bit. They are missing Pascal Siakam, Norman Powell, Marc Gasol, Stanley Johnson, Matt Thomas. Fred VanVleet is questionable. That's actually a very important injury for this team. And will definitely change how I target this Toronto team. But regardless, I'm going to have plenty of them. I think a lot of my teams are going to have at least 3 Toronto today. So we've got a pretty small sample without those 3 off the floor. I could try to pull it up real quick. Here it is. Perfect. First click. And So yeah, Fred VanVleet is going to be phenomenal if he's on. Of course, his number is going to come down. It's only 20 minutes. Like I said, it's a very small sample here, so we're really dealing, take this all with a grain of salt to an extent. But as you can see, they're running into the best possible matchup against Washington here. Highest team total on the slate. There's really no way to get around these guys today, especially because they did price up Lowry. They did price up Ibaka. Good job by DraftKings there. I believe FanDuel did the same. However, we got more news after they did that, where now Gasol is out. Now Norman Powell is out. Siakam is out. I think that they were only expecting Marc Gasol to be out because he got hurt last game, and then Siakam gets hurt. Or Siakam, we hear that he's going to be out after the game. So, yeah, there's a lot here. Serge Ibaka played almost the entire second half on Wednesday and is a 1.2 fantasy point per minute producer with no Siakam and Gasol. DK priced him up. He's still a very solid play. You've got to give him at least 32 minutes here. And with upside for more, as we know that Nick Nurse loves to run that shallow rotation, loves to give his starters big minutes. And he has also, Ibaka's just been uber productive and has a very nice matchup here against Washington down low where they're missing all of their big guys. So I really like Ibaka today, and he's going to get a ton of ownership as well. Really don't think the price tag is anything, anything to worry about there. Even though he got priced up, I still think the price tag is great because you have guaranteed minutes here with no Gasol and Siakam. Also, he's very, very productive on the boards and on offense with no Siakam. Lowry is at 1.4 fantasy point per minute with them out. Of course, minutes are going to be big here for Lowry once again. At 1.4 fantasy point per minute, if you give him 38 minutes, he's going to have to be pretty much the alpha on this team today. No Siakam. We saw what he did last game without Siakam. Grabs 10 boards, gets 10 assists. Like I said, he's just going to be the alpha on this team against a team that runs pace up and has the worst defense in the league. So Lowry, still like him. He's actually coming in as one of the lower-owned Toronto guys, which kind of makes sense because, well, why it makes sense? I don't think it makes sense from a projection standpoint. I think Lowry is going to project great. The issue is that what's happening is that people are playing Rondae Hollis-Jefferson and Chris Boucher and Ibaka, and they're like, oh, well, now I can spend up. And I already have 3 Toronto, so I don't need another Toronto guy. So then they spend the 8,500 or on a 9K guy elsewhere. Well, Lowry is still a fantastic play. Just because you have 3 Toronto doesn't mean you shouldn't be playing Lowry. I'm going to get plenty of Lowry. I expect I will at least match the field, probably be a little bit over on him. I would come a little bit down if Fred VanVleet is in, which is just kind of up in the air right now. I think he's more of a true game time decision. Hopefully we get the news before 7 o'clock. But regardless, I'm going to be getting to Lowry today a good amount. Now for the rest of these guys, if we're giving Ibaka 34, 35 center minutes, that still leaves the 4 minutes from Siakam. He was playing 36 minutes a game. That still gives us the shooting guard minutes from Powell. He was playing 32 per game without Fred VanVleet, 26 with Fred VanVleet. So regardless, minutes are opening up there. We can see Anunoby likely to. That's another one I didn't even mention when I was talking about Lowry there in terms of his ownership. Anunoby is a really, really good play here. He's going to be extended. He's going to have to play the 3. He's going to have to play the 4. He should get up to 36 minutes here. And at 0.8 fantasy point per minute, he in a very, very generous matchup, rebounding offensively. He's projecting great. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson has looked great when he's got extended run this year. He's very, very active. He's over a fantasy point per minute player. He should play some backup 3, some backup 4. He's going to likely lead the bench squad in terms of usage and scoring. He's going to be playing a lot with Kyle Lowry because Lowry's just not going to come off the floor very much. But I don't think that hurts him too much. I think that he's going to be an integral part to this team today. And then behind those guys is Chris Boucher, who will play the 5 minutes when Ibaka is off the floor and also should play some backup 4 minutes as well. Boucher is a super productive fantasy point per minute player. Over a fantasy point per minute this year when he does play. We've seen him when he gets extended run, he's very productive. There's only one game in his last 10 where he did that because, they've been healthy now. Ibaka's there and everyone's just healthy. But now that it's banged up, he's 3.3K, and it's just way too cheap considering that he should be good for at least 18 minutes here. I know they brought up O'Shea Brissett, but, they're going to want to give Boucher minutes over him, and Brissett is really just going to be a guy who plays a few minutes really as a backup 4 or 5. He's a rookie who I don't really think that they even want playing, to be honest with you, whereas Boucher is a guy that looks like he could have a future in the league. Okay, so then if Fred VanVleet is out, that really changes a lot of things as well. That will give you more value in the guards. Of course, like I said, I like Kyle Lowry more if Fred VanVleet is out, but it opens up the possibility for Patrick McCaw to get 30 minutes. He's a very unproductive player. But, if he's playing 32 minutes between the 1, 2, and 3, playing some backup 1 minute potentially, playing some, potentially starting at the 2, and then playing some 3 minutes with Fred VanVleet out. I'm only interested in him if Fred VanVleet is out. He needs volume, he needs minutes, and he's 3,900. I don't think it's like a crazy low price. Where I really get interested in Toronto guards behind Lowry with Fred VanVleet out is with Terrence Davis, who is over a fantasy point per minute or close to a fantasy point per minute player. I think he could play up to like 26 minutes here if Fred VanVleet misses. And we know that they like him. He can play a little bit of the backup 1. Of course, he's going to play the 2 as well next to Lowry. So if we see Fred VanVleet out, I actually like Davis a good amount, and I think he has a good amount of upside. And I'm not sure how many people will really be on Davis unless he draws a start, which I don't expect, even with Fred VanVleet out. Overall, I would rank these guys: Ronnie Hollis Jefferson, Chris Boucher. I'm pretty sure it's Boucher. Actually, I've said it wrong the whole video. OG Anunoby, Kyle Lowry, and Terrence Davis. Did I say Ibaka? Sorry, Anunoby, Ibaka, Kyle Lowry, Terrence Davis. Keep in mind that this is the highest total on the slate, and the Raptors still have the highest team total relative to the rest of the field. So I think it's hard to get away from these guys. And where I think I'll just differentiate in terms of the pieces I've used from Toronto with maybe low-owned expensive guys elsewhere to differentiate my lineup. I don't think I want to differentiate my lineup by fading Toronto is my point. Okay, we have a lot more to talk about. That was a lot to talk about on Toronto. I knew it was going to take a long time. But let's go and talk about the other side of this game where we have Washington. 2 players I'm really interested in on Washington. Actually, there's 3. Troy Brown is okay. I'm not going to really talk about Troy Brown. He played off the bench last game, only played 22 minutes. If he plays more, he's far more productive than Isaac Bonga and should be playing far more minutes than Isaac Bonga. However, that hasn't been the case. So we just kind of have to it's just kind of a risky play that I don't think is a cash play or anything like that, but it's interesting. The 2 that I think you can play in cash and definitely I will be having in GPPs is the top 2, Bradley Beal and Davis Bertans. Beal is one of the top pay-up options on the slate, on a slate that's pretty devoid of pay-up options. Cat is questionable. Doncic is out. Cat has a tough matchup anyway. Embiid has a tough matchup. Not a tough matchup, but not one that I'm really interested in. And then there's like Drummond, who is definitely a great play. We'll talk about him shortly. But Beal is just one of the top pay-up options on the slate for sure. So Bertans is an option you should be considering to run it back for sure, though. Bertans didn't get priced up enough, especially this matchup is softer now than it was before. Obviously, Toronto has a pretty good defense, but with these guys out, I have a little bit more concern about their defense. He only played 32 minutes in a pre-overtime last game, but 36 in regulation the game before. So I'll play him somewhere between there, around 34 minutes. And at over a fantasy point per minute with no Rui, Bryant, and Mo Wagner, I'd really like to get the Bertans here. I think that he has plenty of upside, especially if he's hitting his threes, which we've seen that he is. He's been a fantastic shooter this year. Yeah, I think there's paths for him to fail, but I also think that I will be getting to plenty of him. And, of course, with Beal, like I said, he's going to be the higher-owned option of the 2. Bertans should be pretty low-owned, despite him being pretty chalky on Wednesday. But he really doesn't benefit Mitch with these guys off the floor, like I said before. IT is back to handle the ball for most of the minutes that Beal is getting. And then, of course, you will get Ish Smith as well off the bench for handling the ball. So while he's chalky, I'm not really inclined to be over the field on Beal. However, I do think I'll be getting a decent amount of him. Definitely not someone that I want to full fade or anything like that. I just don't think that he doesn't get the bump that I'm looking for to really take advantage of this price. I don't think this price is one that's like wrong. I think it's fine. He's barely a point per minute with these guys off. Like it's not like he's a outstanding producer or anything. But of course it's Bradley Beal and he can shoot lights out and go off. So I'm gonna at least match on him. Okay. Going on to this game. So another game where there's so many injuries in this game. For Boston, we have Gordon Hayward and Marcus Smart out again. Brad Wanamaker is questionable. Doesn't matter as much, but definitely something to keep an eye on because that could even further increase the minutes floors of Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Semi Ojeleye, I don't know how to say his name. But let's go and talk about the Pistons first, actually, where we have Luke Kennard and Christian Wood out, as well as Blake Griffin is out. So yeah, I mean, like Drummond is my favorite play-up option on the slate. It's not particularly close. They're going to have to run out Drummond as much as they can tonight against not a great rebounding team versus Celtics. They're 24th in defensive rebounding in the league and 22nd in second chance points. Drummond should absolutely dominate this matchup, dominate the glass, especially no Christian Wood, no Blake Griffin. He's my favorite pay up on the slate, and he's going to be popular. I think I'll probably be over on him, to be honest with you, even though he is chalky. Two other options. These are guys I'm going to get plenty of as well. And, I talked about the under on Derrick Rose on FanDuel, and I don't really feel comfortable with it because I think he has a chance to do a lot here. It just really comes down to his minutes. So he's usually, even last game, he only played 28 minutes off the bench, and it seems like they want to keep him around there. He's uber productive when he comes off the bench. And, he's at 1.35 fantasy point per minute this year with no Blake, no Kennard. My thought with Rose is that we could possibly see like a 30-plus game here with no Kennard. If you think about these Detroit guards, Bruce Brown is while he is a better point guard than a shooting guard, I think that there is a decent chance that they are going to slide some of these minutes down. So we could see Bruce Brown play shooting guard because of Kennard being out. We could see Bruce Brown slide down. We could see we're probably going to see Langston Galloway draw the start, and I'll talk about him in a second. But I could see potentially Kennard missing, some minutes sliding down, and Rose getting more minutes at the 1. I could also see potentially, if they don't slide those minutes down, Derrick Rose, they haven't done this a lot this year, but they did a little bit earlier in the year, Derrick Rose playing the 2 because they just need the scoring. Either of those scenarios is definitely something that is just speculation, and we don't know what they're going to do here with no Kennard for sure. I don't think they really want to just let Langston Galloway take all of Luke Kennard's minutes. Like, I think that they're going to do something else. And that could definitely benefit Rose, who, like I said, 1.35 fantasy point per minute, which is absurd. If we're seeing him play 30 minutes, he should crush value. If he gets even at 28 minutes, I'm cool with him. Like, I think he could easily hit value here. Like him a good amount. Like I said, Kennard injury opens up the starting spot for Langston Galloway. Let me just check my phone and make sure there are no injuries. Okay. Langston Galloway is 3.3K. He's going to play about 36 minutes. He's only like a 0.52 or 0.54, something like that, fantasy point per minute producer. So there's a lot of paths to him still failing, but at 3.3K, you're not really taking much of a risk. I'm not sure it's also a place where you have to go because of all of the Toronto value, but he's certainly a very solid play at that price. But there's also some paths to him busting. So I saw him at very, very high ownership. I don't think I'll be inclined to be over on Galloway necessarily because of the other. There's not a lot of pay up options in the slate, and there's a ton of other value on the slate. So I just don't really see the need to be over on Langston Galloway. Other side of this game in Boston, like I'm really focusing on these two games for the sake of this video, but talk about some other options very briefly at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. Boston's still missing Marcus Smart, Gordon Hayward, so Kemba, 1.52 fantasy point per minute producer. Without those guys on the floor, he will dominate pretty much. He's going to alpha in every category today. He's priced up to 8,300, so he's catching less ownership, which I absolutely love. I feel fine about him in cash. I feel fine about him in GPPs. I think he's going to play a ton of minutes. I think he's going to get a ton of usage. I think his assist rate's going to be awesome. I think his rebounds could potentially rise a bit. Yeah, I really, really like Kemba Walker today, and I want to get lots of him. Jaylen Brown should also see a really solid minutes floor. He played 35 minutes the other day, and, I think that we could pretty much see him around 35 to 38 with these guys out. A 1.2 fantasy point per minute producer with those guys off the floor. I feel great about him getting to 5x. I feel like 6x is regularly in his range here, even though it is a pace. It's not really a pace-up game or anything. I feel great about that price. And to me, the centers are interesting as well. We know that they're going to need to have these centers out here to defend Andre Drummond. Both these guys are essentially like unowned right now. Tice is only 4,100. He's the starter. However, he's not very productive offensively. He can have his games, but I'm not too interested in playing Daniel Tice. Like I said, he's unowned, so maybe you can get a little bit. But guy I'm a little bit more interested in because I think he has more offensive upside, and I think that he also will be needed. They're going to need these big bodies down low. Is Enes Kanter. He has more upside as a scorer, offensive piece, averaging 1.16 fantasy point per minute with Smart, Hayward, and Robert Williams off the floor. I like him a decent amount. And then obviously you have Rod Wanamaker as well. If he plays, he's a decent value at 3,500. But again, like Galloway, just someone that you're not really going to need to get to. And also I prefer Galloway to Wanamaker even. So it's just like there's not a lot. Like you're not really going to need to go there. But he does project well at 3,500. Okay, let's run through some of my other options on the slate because we have not talked at all about 8 games on the slate to this point in the video. There are going to be so many low-owned options in this slate that because of the Raptors. So you really should not be afraid to get different today. If you have a take about one of these guys in this 7K to 10K range, if you have a take like that's gonna be low owned, take that. Do it. Like, go for it, because the ownership on these guys should be pretty spread out, and I think a lot of the guys are gonna be pretty low owned. So. I like, first of all, I think that you could target the New Orleans Golden State game. Whether you want to go with like a D'Angelo Russell 8,300, don't mind that. You can go with a Brandon Ingram or a Drew Holiday. You can also go with some cheaper New Orleans guys like Derek Favors, like Alonzo Ball if he starts potentially, even though he has looked brutal for them recently. But yeah, so I think that's one way to go. Those guys are all in play for me. As a cheap guy who's not getting ownership and is projecting very well, and I don't think is really going to end up catching ownership, is Aaron Baines at 4,200. Still going to be starting here for the Suns, I believe. Okay, he's coming off the bench. He came off the bench here. It could be due to his injury. I'm actually not sure if they're starting him right now. But assuming he gets back into a starting role, 4,200 for Aaron Baines is very, very cheap. A guy who, like I said, should be the starting center for this team. And at 4,200, even a tough matchup. Everyone has a tough matchup today, seemingly. So, really, really, really like him. And then Kristaps Porzingis, he's not going to be owned, I don't think. And it is a tough matchup against Philly. But at the end of the day, this dude's coming off 2 of his best games in Dallas. He has massive usage, massive rebound rate without Doncic. Like, people forget that Doncic is a fantastic rebounder. Like, dude was averaging almost 10 rebounds a game. So when Kristaps comes in, obviously, or when he's out, obviously Kristaps is going to grab more of those rebounds now. So he's also got a higher minutes floor because they need his scoring. He's played 40, 33, 38 minutes. Like, love Kristaps today. I think that his floor is tremendous. And, I don't see him scoring less than 40 in virtually any matchup, even though this is a tough one. Definitely the upside is capped a little bit at this price. I will admit that. Okay, and then the Cleveland guys are interesting. Kevin Love and Thompson. I talked briefly about Love in the last video, I believe, and he went off. He definitely helped me on Wednesday. Or wait, Wednesday? I guess maybe I didn't talk about him in the video because that was on Wednesday. So yeah, I had Kevin Love on Wednesday. He had a great game. I was touting him in the Slack. He showed that he still has it when the team is competitive. And, this is another game. If we go to the total here, pretty high total. It's dropped a little bit, but it's a 2-point spread, which is really why I want to attack these Cleveland guys. When Cleveland's in a close game, they're playing a team that is 24th in second chance points allowed. They've allowed a decent amount of those. Tristan Thompson's at 6,100 as well. I want to get to both of those guys in GPPs when they're in close games because they are just going to be way, way too under-owned. Because people are going to see, especially right now, because people are going to see Cleveland as these Cleveland guys inconsistent, but really, they're actually very consistent when they're in close games. And I think that both the prices on both those guys are fair, and they both have room for upside, especially Tristan Thompson at 6,100. We know what he can do potentially. So, yeah, both under 10% plays that could absolutely go off. You pretty much needed Love on Wednesday, so. Okay, that will pretty much wrap it up. I think this video went very long, so I appreciate all you guys tuning in and watching. Of course, per usual, be sure we're going to record the Saturday night video tonight, so the Saturday football video tonight, so this is your last chance. I said that yesterday, but this is actually your last chance to comment for a chance to win that free season pass from locksdfs.com. Per usual, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Really, really helps us out. We appreciate you guys coming and watching our videos. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at @byhardy. Follow us on Twitter at locksdfs, and we'll see you guys back here next time. Peace and good luck tonight. Awesome slate. Good luck.